The alert didn't sound like the ones from weather tests. It was longer, louder, wrong. My phone vibrated so hard it slid off my desk and hit the floor. At the same time, every other phone in the apartment complex went off, overlapping into this distorted wall of sound that made my ears ring. Emergency alert. Unknown illness reported in multiple counties. Symptoms include disorientation, nausea, and loss of motor control. Seek medical attention if symptoms worsen. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Outside, I could already hear people. Doors opening. Someone shouting from a balcony asking if anyone else got it. A car alarm went off and didn't stop. The news came on less than 5 minutes later. Every channel. Same anchors. Same words. They said it was being investigated. They said hospitals were prepared. They said there was no need to panic. I didn't panic. Not yet. The symptoms didn't hit all at once. It started with pressure behind my eyes, like I hadn't slept in days. Then a metallic taste in my mouth that wouldn't go away no matter how much water I drank. By the time I stepped outside, I wasn't the only one holding my head. A woman across the street was sitting on the curb, breathing through clenched teeth. A guy leaned against his car like the ground had tilted under him. An ambulance screamed past us, then another. People weren't running. They were going somewhere. I followed the flow without really thinking about it. Traffic toward the medical center was backed up for blocks. Police waved cars through intersections without stopping. The radio kept repeating the same calm sentence over and over. Hospitals remain operational. When we finally parked, the emergency room entrance was packed. People on stretchers. People arguing with security. Someone vomiting into a trash can while a nurse tried to ask questions that didn't seem to be helping. The automatic doors opened and closed constantly, letting noise spill out into the night. It smelled like disinfectant and sweat. This was still normal. This was still safe. That's what everyone believed. I stepped inside with at least a dozen other people. The doors slid shut behind us, and every sound, the shouting, the intercom, the movement, stopped. The lobby lights stayed on. The front desk computer screens glowed. But there were no nurses, no doctors, no security, nothing. Everyone around me slowed to a stop at the exact same time. And that's when my phone vibrated again. Emergency alert. Updating. My phone vibrated in my hand, then froze. The words didn't load right away. The screen stayed gray for a few seconds longer than it should have, like it was struggling to connect to something that didn't want to be reached. Around me, other people's phones started doing the same thing. Buzzing. Silence. Buzzing again. Then the message finally appeared. Emergency alert. Do not seek medical help. Repeat. Do not seek medical help. If you are currently inside a medical facility, remain where you are. Nobody spoke. A man near the entrance laughed once, sharp and too loud, like it had slipped out by accident. That's a mistake, he said. They mean don't come now. They don't mean us. No one agreed with him. Someone tried the doors. They slid apart easily, but beyond them, the night looked wrong. The parking lot lights were still on, but everything past them was swallowed in fog so thick it erased the street. A woman whispered, "They want us to stay." We moved deeper into the hospital. Not because it made sense, because standing still felt worse. The emergency department looked abandoned mid-thought. Monitors beeped softly in empty bays. A gurney sat crooked in the hallway, its sheets half pulled like someone had been interrupted. At the nurse's station, a coffee cup had gone cold beside an open patient chart. No blood on the floor, no signs of a struggle, just absence. Then we heard it, coughing. Not from the hallway, from one of the rooms. A young guy pushed the door open before anyone could stop him. Inside, a patient lay strapped to the bed, not restrained violently, carefully, like the staff had taken their time. He was awake. His eyes snapped toward us the moment the door moved. They were red and glassy, veins webbed through the whites like cracks in porcelain. "Don't," he croaked. Someone rushed forward. "Sir, we're here to help." "No." The patient said, louder now. You don't understand. His hands shook against the restraints. His breathing sped up like he was fighting off a memory. They told us it was treatment, he whispered. They said it was temporary. I noticed the forebag. It wasn't labeled. The patient followed my gaze and let out something between a laugh and a sob. They aren't doctors, he said. Not all of them. The room went quiet. They don't come back the same, he continued. They watch you through the glass. They stop writing things down after a while. Someone asked where the nurses went. The patient swallowed hard. They left us, he said, or whatever was wearing them did. Before anyone could move, he yanked his arm hard against the restraint. The plastic cut into his wrist. Blood ran down the side of the bed. Don't let them touch you, he said, eyes locked on mine. The medical center isn't what it. He didn't finish the sentence. With one violent motion, he twisted forward and drove his head down into the metal bed rail. Once, twice. The third time, something cracked. The monitors screamed. Everyone backed away, shouting, panicking, but it was too late. His body went slack against the straps, blood pooling beneath him as the machines flatlined into one continuous tone. Then the monitors shut off by themselves. The lights flickered, and somewhere deeper in the hospital, a door closed. Not slammed, closed. No one screamed. That was the worst part. We just stood there, staring at the body strapped to the bed while the last echo of the flatline faded into nothing. The room smelled metallic now, thick and warm, and I realized my hands were shaking so hard I had to press them against my legs to steady myself. Someone whispered, "We need to leave." Nobody argued. We spilled back into the hallway, stepping around the gurney like it might grab us if we got too close. Our footsteps sounded wrong. Too loud, too sharp, like the building was empty except for us and wanted us to know it. That's when I noticed the glass. The observation windows ran along the hallway, tall and wide, looking into the treatment rooms. Most of them reflected us back. Pale faces, wide eyes, people trying not to panic. One of them didn't. At first, I thought it was just the lighting. A shadow stretched across the inside of the room, darker than the rest, like something was blocking the overhead lights. Then it moved. Not fast, not sudden. It shifted, slow and deliberate, just enough to prove it wasn't a trick of the glass. Someone behind me said, "Is there someone in there?" The door to that room was closed. The bed inside was empty. No patient, no equipment running. Just the faint outline of something standing where a person shouldn't be able to stand without being seen. It moved again, closer to the glass. Couldn't make out details. No face, no shape I could describe later. Just the sense that whatever it was understood where we were and was adjusting itself accordingly. A man stepped forward, raising his phone. The moment the flashlight beam hit the glass, the shadow dropped. Not fell, dropped, straight down like it had folded into the floor. The room was empty again. Someone laughed weakly. Okay, there's an explanation for that. Then another window fogged up, right in front of us. A handprint appeared on the inside of the glass. Not pressed, dragged. Fingers smeared downward slowly, leaving clean lines through the fog like something was testing how much pressure it needed. People started backing away. More windows fogged. More movement, never fully visible, never clear enough to understand. Just shifts, bends, silhouettes that vanished the moment you tried to focus on them. A woman near the end of the hall pointed and screamed. One of the observation rooms was no longer empty. The bed was occupied, strapped down. We hadn't seen anyone bring the patient in. We hadn't heard a thing. The patient's chest rose once, then stopped. The lights flickered again, and this time they didn't all come back on. Down the hall, a door creaked open. Slowly, from inside the darkness, something began to move toward the sound of our breathing. Nobody said it out loud, but we all understood the same thing at once. Staying meant waiting. Waiting meant ending up strapped to a bed no one remembered putting you in. "Out," someone whispered. "We go now." No one argued. We moved fast, not running, not yet. Shoes squealed faintly against the polished floor as we passed darkened hallways and half-lit rooms. The farther we got from the emergency department, the quieter it became. No beeping, no hum of machines, just our breathing and the soft click of doors settling behind us. The exit sign glowed green at the end of the corridor. Someone reached it first and slammed their palm against the bar. The doors burst open. Cold air rushed in. Fog spilled through the doorway like it had been waiting on the other side. The parking lot lights were still on, but they barely helped. Everything beyond the first few rows of cars dissolved into white. The hospital loomed behind us, its windows dark now, reflective, hiding whatever still moved inside. People scattered immediately. Bad idea. Stay together, someone shouted. But it was already too late. Shapes disappeared into the fog within seconds, swallowed whole, their footsteps fading like they'd stepped off the edge of something. I stayed near the entrance with a small group, 6 of us, close enough to touch. We could still hear the hospital doors creaking behind us as they slowly slid shut on their own. The moment they sealed, the fog shifted. Not rolling, adjusting, parted just enough to reveal the first body. A man lay face down between 2 cars, arms twisted wrong beneath him. His phone was still clutched in his hand, emergency alert frozen on the screen. There was no blood, no visible injuries, just his face, eyes wide, mouth stretched open like he tried to scream and forgot how. A woman near me gagged. "That wasn't here before," she said. She was right. We had walked past that spot minutes ago. More shapes appeared as we moved. People slumped against bumpers, collapsed near open car doors, sitting upright in driver's seats like they'd simply stopped. None of them looked injured. None of them looked peaceful. Then someone behind us said, "Is that one breathing?" We all turned. The body closest to the fog twitched. Just once. The fog thickened around it, curling low, hiding the legs first, then the torso. By the time it reached the face, the twitching stopped. When the fog pulled back, the body was gone. No sound, no trail, nothing. A low hum filled the air. Not mechanical, not electrical, more like pressure, deep in my ears, like altitude sickness without the height. Every phone buzzed at once. Not an alert, a message. If you have exited a medical facility, do not re-enter. Do not approach unresponsive individuals. Do not follow voices in low visibility conditions. Someone laughed hysterically. Follow voices? As if on cue. Help me. The voice came from the fog. Close. Too close. Sounded normal. Calm. A man's voice, strained but clear. I can't see. I think I fell. A woman took a step forward before anyone could stop her. The voice repeated, softer now. Please. The fog shifted again, and something inside it moved toward the sound of her breathing. The fog outside pressed against my skin like it wanted to mark me. Every step felt heavier, not because of fatigue, but because the air itself seemed wrong, thick in the lungs. I kept close to the small group from the hospital, but their faces were pale, wide-eyed, silent. Nobody knew where to go. Nobody had a plan. We had all followed the same advice, go to the hospital, but that had only led us to this nightmare. I pulled out my phone. Social media was chaos. Videos of abandoned hospitals looping, each more horrifying than the last. People posting, pleading for help, disappearing mid-comment. Messages from friends I thought were alive just stopped mid-sentence. One thread read, "Don't go outside if you see the fog moving." I scrolled faster, desperate. Comments weren't helping. No one knew anything. Some were panicked, some were blaming each other. Someone had filmed themselves leaving a different hospital, and the caption read, "It follows you. It knows you went there. Don't stop." I tried calling home. No answer. My apartment, my old routines, my safety, they were meaningless now. The group murmured, debating what to do. Some wanted to move through the fog, get out of the city entirely. Others wanted to turn back, to retreat to wherever we thought might be safe. Every option seemed wrong. Every step felt like walking deeper into something alive. I opened a map app, Streets were blocked, highways clogged with abandoned vehicles, emergency lines flashing red. Follow instructions. Shelter in place if caught outside a facility. The alert was still in my notifications. I opened it again. If you have exited a medical facility, do not re-enter. Do not approach unresponsive individuals. Do not follow voices in low visibility conditions. I looked at the fog. The streets were empty, but not silent. I swore I heard faint footsteps ahead, pacing along with ours. Shadows shifted in corners, always out of focus, always gone when we tried to look directly. I whispered to the group, "We have to get home, at least somewhere familiar. Maybe if we follow the main roads, we can reach someone who knows what's happening." Someone scoffed. "Home? That's a joke. Look around. Nobody's home is safe anymore." I kept scrolling through social media, trying to find answers, trying to see if anyone had made it somewhere safe. Every post raised more questions than it answered. My city blocked off the hospitals. No one allowed out. The fog. It's growing faster than anyone thought. Why did the alerts change? They told us to go in the first place. Panic started creeping in. The streets looked normal, almost mundane. Cars parked neatly, lights still on, but the fog swallowed everything else. One wrong turn could leave you trapped. One wrong glance could bring you closer to whatever moved in the mist. I made a choice. I would move. I would try to get home. I would follow the directions. And I would hope the instructions meant something, anything, to survive. We started walking. The fog shifted with us. And somewhere far ahead, a low whispering began, almost like the city itself was talking to us. I didn't answer. We didn't. We kept moving through the streets, the fog pressing against our skin, muffling sound, bending the world. Every step felt like wading through cotton. Shadows shifted at the edges of vision, shapes stretching just beyond clarity. My chest ached with every shallow breath, and my phone vibrated constantly. Messages, alerts, snippets of chaos from the outside world, but none offered help. None offered guidance. And then it stopped. The fog didn't thin. It didn't fade. It simply vanished. 1 second it was all around us, white and suffocating, licking up buildings, swallowing streets. The next, it was gone. The city sprawled out in front of us, empty, silent. Streetlights flickered weakly in the distance. Cars abandoned mid-turn, doors ajar. Nothing moved. No pedestrians. No ambulances. No emergency personnel. Just silence. The group froze. I looked around. A man collapsed onto the pavement, trembling, staring at nothing. Where is everyone?" he whispered. I shook my head. "I don't know." The streets were unnervingly normal. The sky was overcast but calm, wind rustling faintly through power lines. And yet, it didn't feel safe. The emptiness pressed against us like the fog had, but now it was stillness instead of substance. A silent, waiting thing. I checked my phone. No new alerts. The messages from social media were mostly frozen, like the world had been paused. Someone had posted a picture of a hospital, empty and clean, then nothing. No caption, no follow-up. We tried moving, sticking together, heading toward main roads, toward home, toward anywhere familiar. Each street felt wrong. Windows stared at us like blank eyes, doors half opened in anticipation. I could swear I saw movement just beyond the alleyways, but when I looked, nothing was there. Eventually, we found an intersection that hadn't been blocked by cars before. The streets were clear, the sidewalks empty, the fog was gone. The city was empty, and then a single scream, far off, high-pitched, human but twisted. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once, cutting through the silence. We didn't wait. Nobody said a word. We ran toward home, toward familiarity, toward anything that might still exist outside this nightmare. But the city had changed. It didn't need the fog anymore. Its rules were already in place. And somewhere in the distance, I felt it waiting. Not moving, just watching. We didn't notice them at first. The city streets stretched out before us, empty and silent after the fog lifted. My legs burned with exhaustion, every step echoing off the abandoned buildings. We had dared to hope just a little that maybe this was over, that maybe the hospital had been the only epicenter, the only trap. We were wrong. At first, it was subtle. Shadows shifting unnaturally at the edge of streetlights. Reflections in glass doors that didn't match the angle of our bodies. But then, they appeared. A line of them, slowly moving toward us from the far end of the street. Nurses, doctors, uniforms pristine, white coats glowing faintly under the streetlights. Masks hung from their faces, or in some cases were gone entirely. Their footsteps were synchronized, almost too deliberate. And the smiles, wide, too wide, not human. I froze. The closer they got, the more I noticed the details that made my stomach twist. Their eyes were wide open, unervingly blank, with a glint that wasn't reflective, like polished glass. A blood smeared across their gloves, some fresh, some dried. Fingers bent in impossible angles, knuckles clicking faintly as they walked. Their smiles stretched too far, teeth unnaturally sharp, gums red like the blood that coated their hands. A woman in scrubs stepped closer. She tilted her head, almost like a predator inspecting prey. Her smile widened further. "You shouldn't have left," she said. Her voice was calm, sweet, wrong. Behind her, another nurse held a scalpel loosely in one hand. Blood dripped from it, not a trace of struggle on the street. Nobody screamed, nobody ran. We hadn't even thought of moving yet, our muscles locked in instinctive terror. Someone behind me whispered, They weren't like that in the hospital." I realized they hadn't been human there either, or if they had, they weren't anymore. Something had changed them, shaped them, made them this grotesque parody of care. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but my legs didn't move. The lead doctor raised her head, tilting it almost impossibly, and smiled wider than any human smile should stretch. "Don't worry," she said softly. "We just want to help you." And in that moment, I understood. Help was the last thing on their minds. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth, and I realized with a gut-wrenching certainty, whatever had happened inside those hospitals had followed us here. And now it was waiting. The street stretched ahead, but it wasn't a path. It was a trap. The lead doctor's smile stretched impossibly wide as she stepped forward, and the others behind her mirrored every movement in perfect, horrifying unison. Every step they took was deliberate, patient, like they were savoring the fear before them. My group froze for half a second too long. That was enough. The first nurse lunged, not running, just leaning, her body bending in ways no human should. Her smile stayed fixed, teeth glinting red under the streetlights. I shouted, "Run!" We bolted, feet pounding against asphalt, hearts hammering. The doctors and nurses followed, not with speed, but with a rhythm that made the chase feel eternal. Every time we turned a corner, they were there, just a few steps behind, smiles wide, blood smeared, moving with a precision that made it impossible to escape normally. Cars abandoned along the roads became obstacles, but also cover. We ducked behind them, trying to catch our breath. One of the group tripped over a curb. The nurse nearest him tilted her head, watching. She didn't move her arms, didn't scream, just watched. Then the man's scream ripped the night open, and a second later silence. Couldn't look back. I couldn't process what happened. All I could do was push forward, following my instincts, following the roads toward anywhere, toward home, toward safety, toward something that might still be human. The city felt wrong. Every street corner we turned, more figures appeared, not always in uniform, some in civilian clothes, faces twisted, smiles too wide, eyes hollow, all of them moving the same way, predictable, relentless, unnatural. We reached an intersection. Traffic lights flickered faintly. Nothing moved except them. The lead doctor stepped into the middle of the street as if marking a line. She raised her arms slightly, tilting her head. And then we noticed it. The blood. It wasn't just on her hands anymore. It was smeared across the road, across the walls, dripping slowly as if gravity had slowed. Not chaotic, not random, precise, deliberate. A warning. "Keep going," I whispered to the group. We ran. Around a corner, past a burned-out car, past empty storefronts. I dared a glance back. The figures were gone. But then, from the reflection in a broken window, I saw them, pressing their faces to the glass, wide smiles, eyes unblinking, waiting, watching, patient. The street ahead opened to a bridge. I knew if we crossed it, we'd leave the hospital area behind. Maybe reach the outskirts of the city. Maybe find someone still alive and sane. I didn't think about it. I just ran. And as we reached the midpoint of the bridge, I heard the whisper again, soft, almost seductive. "Don't stop. Don't look back." I obeyed. But I knew one thing with chilling certainty. The city wasn't safe anymore. Not the streets. Not the hospitals. Not even the fog or the absence of it. It was all gone, except for them. And they were still smiling. We made it off the bridge. The fog was gone, but the city behind us looked dead silent streets, abandoned cars, flickering streetlights, and the occasional shadow that moved just a fraction too quickly to be normal. No screams, no chasing figures, just emptiness. The group slowed, breathing heavily. Every step felt heavy with exhaustion and disbelief. We had escaped the hospital and its immediate horrors, yet the air felt thicker, heavier than it had before. Something about the city lingered, like it had left a stain on the world. I pulled out my phone again, desperate for any signal. Social media barely loaded. Most feeds were frozen mid-post, half of them showing people running through streets like we had, their faces pale, their eyes wide. One video showed a hospital entrance with dozens of figures standing perfectly still outside, smiling, but when the camera panned back to the street, nobody was there. I realized the alerts hadn't ended. My phone buzzed. "If you have exited a high-risk zone, move away immediately. Avoid contact with unresponsive individuals. Report any strange activity to authorities if possible." I scrolled for more, but the words only raised questions. People were calling it the anomaly, the shift, the contagion. But nobody knew how it spread, why it targeted hospitals, or why some people, like us, were still alive. "Where do we go?" someone asked. Her voice was trembling. I swallowed. I don't know. We keep moving. Away from the city. Maybe the outskirts. Maybe we can find roads to somewhere safe. We followed a highway leading out of the city. Signs flickered intermittently, lights in towns along the way blinking but deserted. Houses stood still, doors ajar, cars parked haphazardly. Nothing alive, nothing breathing. And then, in the distance, we saw them again. Not the wide-smiled doctors this time. Not exactly, just figures, people we recognized or thought we did. Standing along the roads, silent, faces pale, grinning, arms slightly bent, fingers clicking softly as they moved. "Are those people?" someone whispered. I didn't answer, couldn't. The way they moved was wrong, stilted, inhuman, and yet they weren't running at us. They weren't chasing. They just stood there like markers, observers, waiting. We passed them slowly, trying to act normal, trying to ignore the way our instincts screamed to run, to hide. But we knew it. The world wasn't safe anymore. Not cities, not highways, not forests, not homes. We had left the fog behind, but the danger wasn't gone. It had evolved. It had learned. It was everywhere. And the grins told me one thing with horrifying clarity. It was patient, and it would wait for the next mistake. We reached the outskirts of the city just before nightfall. The highway opened into a small town, streets narrow and quiet. Houses sat neatly, lights dim, some flickering. It looked normal, too normal. I thought maybe we were finally safe. The group slowed, footsteps echoing on the asphalt, voices hushed, every movement deliberate. We passed abandoned cars, lawns overgrown but quiet, and for a moment I almost believed it, almost. Then we saw it. A nurse, walking slowly down the sidewalk, white coat spotless, smile impossibly wide, blood smeared along her gloves. She stopped and looked directly at us, head tilted, eyes glinting. "Hello?" she said softly, voice sweet. "Wrong." I grabbed the nearest person's arm. "Keep moving," I hissed. We tried to rush past, but the street seemed longer than it should have been. Every turn we made, another figure appeared. A doctor, a nurse, sometimes a civilian, but always with the same unnatural smile, the same hollow stare. Some carried knives. Some held nothing. All of them bled. We reached a house at the edge of town. Its door hung open as if inviting us in. Desperation won. We ran inside, slamming the door behind us. Inside, the house looked normal. Furniture, lights, even food on a counter. But the silence was wrong. Too perfect. Then the whispers started. Soft, faint, coming from the shadows. "Help me, help me." I froze. One by one, the figures appeared in the windows outside the house, standing in impossible angles, smiling, blood dripping, moving like they didn't care about physics or balance. The group huddled together. Phones had no signal. Social media, dead. The outside world, silent but full of them. I realized the truth. The fog had gone. The hospitals had gone. The streets had emptied. But it didn't matter. Wherever humans went, whatever city, whatever town, they would follow. The whispers grew louder, echoing inside the walls now. The grins pressed closer. I couldn't tell if they were outside or already inside. The house, the streets, the world, it didn't matter anymore. The last thought that crossed my mind, before the lights flickered and the shadows bent in impossible ways, was simple. No place is safe. No one is safe. And it's already here. Days later, the world was silent. Not the quiet of peace, but the quiet of something that had already won. Cities were empty. Roads stretched endlessly, littered with abandoned cars, half-eaten meals, open doors. Social media feeds froze mid-post. Phones buzzed, but the messages were meaningless. A few videos remained. Shaky footage of streets, hospitals, and houses. The same wide-smiled figures moving deliberately, always watching, always waiting. Nobody knew how far it had spread. Nobody knew who was still alive. Those who survived the hospitals, the fog, the streets, if they were lucky, kept moving. They followed the instructions in the alerts, but the instructions changed too fast, became contradictory, or simply disappeared. I remember the last message I saw before my phone died. Do not approach unresponsive individuals. Do not follow voices in low visibility. Do not stop. I tried to leave the city. I tried to go home. Every turn brought more of them. Doctors, nurses, civilians, smiling wide, bleeding, moving in ways that weren't human. The fog was gone, but the world had not returned to normal. And somewhere in the distance, I could still hear it. Soft footsteps, whispers, the faint echo of laughter. Patient, waiting. No one could stop it. No one could escape it. The world wasn't broken. It had already been claimed. And all that was left was survival.